With breaking news out of Idaho and the Doomsday Cult mom trial, we want to go straight to Boise, Idaho, where our Court TV legal correspondent Chanley Painter has been there covering all the court. And I even, when I announced, oh, we've got breaking news just a couple of minutes ago, didn't know what it was. Chanley, what have you learned?
Great to be with you, Ashley. That's right. Court TV has exclusively confirmed with Lori Vallow's defense team that Chad Daybell, her husband, will not testify in her trial as it unfolds here in Boise, Idaho, Ada County Courthouse. We had speculated a while that he could possibly be someone that comes into this courtroom to testify. He's an alleged co-conspirator, as you know, Judge Ashley, but now we know he's not any part of this case. We will not see him on the witness stand during her trial.
Chanley, there's been so much speculation about that, and I just have to take it a step further because, you know, some people watching this think she's the mastermind. Some believe she's not the mastermind. She was following his will, so to speak. But the reality is, if we know he's not testifying, she may choose to get on the stand and throw him under the bus.
That's right. She could still take the stand. That's a very likely possibility for her defense. I know if I was sitting on that jury panel, and I'm sitting really close to them inside that courtroom all day, Ashley, we want to hear from her, especially after they hear things like the jailhouse phone call when her son calls her and confronts her and those odd responses, or why she was behaving the way she was when her children were missing. So we could maybe hear from her. What does she have to lose? Well, we know what she has to lose, but she sits there in that courtroom, Ashley, and, you know, we've seen this roller coaster of emotions from her. Yesterday, for the first time, I actually did see tears in her eyes when her son Colby was on the stand for the first time during this trial, some genuine-looking emotion from her. And then today, while, you know, the testimony's a little, you know, tedious about the finances of her and her brother and her husband, she seems to be taking notes and serious. And then at the lunch break, Ashley, she was standing up, smiling. She's very, she talks with her hands. So she is talking to her defense attorney. She's talking to her defense investigator sitting on the first row of the gallery, very animated. And then I'm standing there watching her in the back of the courtroom. She notices me standing there. She smiles at me a couple of times. So seems to be in good spirits and upbeat today.
Wow, Chanley, I'm looking at the sketch. So we know cameras aren't allowed. We know there's a sketch artist doing renditions. Just did one with that smile that you perhaps just described as she's standing. Really, you know, when you're on trial for murder with allegations of having killed 3 people, including 2 of your own children, it's hard to imagine any defendant smiling, but that's what we have. Tell me a little bit more. I want to lean in with you about Lori Vallow Daybell, and today you've provided us descriptions of what she's wearing and how she appears when she comes in. Tell us a little bit more about that today, how she's dressed. Is she looking at the jury or not?
You know, today I did notice a different hairstyle. You know, we're women and we notice how hair is curled or not curled, right? So today, where she usually has a spiral curl to her hair, today it is less that, more flowing. I don't know how she's doing her hair in the jail, how that's provided. We know that usually defense teams will bring clothes for the client to wear, and she has on makeup every day. Yesterday she was wearing that famous red lipstick yesterday in court, but today not so much. Her hair loose curls, all black today from head to toe. Her clothes seem a little bit big for her too, especially, you don't really notice it until she stands up, Ashley, like she's lost a lot of weight or they didn't purchase the right sizes for her. Another thing I've noticed this week that's different from last week is that she does not wear the ankle shackles in court as she wore all last week. Maybe she's earned some trust there with the deputies in the courtroom. They're actually called marshals here at Ada County. They aren't from the sheriff's office. They work only here at the courthouse. So they're courthouse marshals that run this courthouse and the security and that are there inside the courtroom that escort her in and out. Last week, because she did have on these ankle shackles, she couldn't move. So she would stand up at the counsel table. She's shackled to the ground. She has to wait for everyone to leave. They come unlock her, and then they walk her to the hallway, put her in like this rolling chair to roll her down because it's hard to walk in ankle shackles. But difference this week is no ankle shackles. So maybe she's on good behavior.
Isn't that interesting? So just for our viewers, a lot of viewers will say, why is any defendant not wearing what they have to wear in jail, meaning the jumpsuit, whether it's orange or striped or whatever it is, depending on where they are. And we know the reality is the presumption of innocence, because they're innocent. You're not going to sit them in front of a jury wearing jail garb and potentially prejudice the jury against them. So we know that's why she gets to wear her own clothes. Now, the ankle shackles, I also wonder, I just have to pontificate for just a second with you, maybe that's because there was an appearance that she was shackled, or it may, you know, it was a look that perhaps somebody, the judge was fearful the jury would look at negatively. Who knows the reason, but obviously not a risk, they believe, for her to not have on the ankle shackles. I promise you, every day I talk to you, Chanley, I feel like you have there's something new, whether it's the appearance, the hair, the shackles. It's a never changing landscape, I feel like, for this jury. But moving on, I know that we've been hearing from an FBI forensic accountant. Tell us what has stood out to you about his testimony.
Right, so again, there was a quick lunch break, just to update our viewers. Right now, court has just started back up with the new witness, Scott Calden, who was dispatched to the Charles Vallow shooting in Arizona. So that's just now starting up, a little bit delayed. There was like this 20-30-minute delay after lunch for a reason we don't know. The deputies would not tell us. But earlier today, again, a lot of testimony focused around the alleged financial crimes of Lori Vallow and her co-conspirators. And at first glance, it can seem a bit tedious, but if you really listen to this testimony, there's some bombshells that come out. Here's a couple from the FBI forensic accountant who was on the stand. He published a lot of fancy timeline graphics to the jury about Tylee's finances, JJ's finances, Chad Daybell's, and then Alex Cox's. And what we learned from that Social Security information for that she's charged with, that from October 2019 to February 2020, Lori received more than $22,000 in Social Security benefits. This is after her children are dead, and that's a part of the grand theft charge that she's facing. And it was really interesting. Right before lunch, raised some eyebrows inside that courtroom, Ashley, when this special agent goes through Chad Daybell's bank accounts, his credit cards, and other documents. He says to him, what stood out? It was more of what I didn't find on Chad Daybell's accounts. He said on his work business card, his publishing company credit card, on September 18th, he made a purchase for a cell phone at Rexburg Walmart. We know that he had a burner phone with Lori, so he's purchasing likely a burner phone. He also filed life insurance claims in the days of Tammy's death, which he increased to the maximum on the day that Tylee Ryan was murdered, by the way. He immediately starts collecting that life insurance and goes to Hawaii to get married. And also, he attempted to refinance his home that we've been to many times in East Idaho on October 8th. And then, get this, Ashley, the day that the authorities show up on his property, June 9th, 2020, and unearth the remains of Tylee and JJ in the hours that morning, he's likely sitting in his driveway watching it all unfold. He makes 3 financial transfers from his bank account in the amount of $8,000 to his 3 oldest children, totaling $24,000. All that's left in that bank account is $4,400, according to this account expert. Timing of that doesn't look very good.
No, it doesn't look very good at all. And all of this speaks as to the motive, right? When you've got this kind of money coming in and that $22,000 plus in Social Security benefits that Lori's collecting while the children have disappeared. Nobody knows where they are, allegedly. Chanley Payne, we're going to let you go. I know you're going to get back inside, and we will get updates from you later on throughout the shows. Right now, I want to welcome my guests for this hour. We have state and federal litigator Remy Spencer and trial attorney Holly Davis. Thank you both for joining. Holly, let me start with you on this breaking news. We now know conspiracy charges they're both facing, Lori and her husband Chad, for the 3 murders, along with the first-degree murder charges. But how significant is it to learn that he is not planning to testify at the trial against Lori?
It's extremely significant because for years now, as we've awaited this trial, we've asked ourselves on court TV and in the media, is he going to turn? Is someone going to turn on the other person? When you have co-conspirators, typically we see that one testifies against the other in exchange for a reduced sentence, but we don't have this here. And this twisted, map of people that have died in the wake of Lori and Chad Daybell is so many people, and that there are so many questions. It is a huge development that Chad is not going to be testifying in this case because there are still so many questions about who did what. I believe that they're both creating a strategy of not testifying against the other person in the hopes that there'll be so many questions about who did what for each of these murders that there will not be enough evidence to convict one of them. That's my take on this choice.
And, you know, so often we see co-defendants tried separately turning on each other. There was a plea deal in another case just the other day because these two 17-year-olds basically turned on each other and gave all the information. All right, Remy, thank you for joining us today. I'm glad to have you join Court TV, this go-around Court TV. But let me ask you this. What are the options? So let's say they know that if Chad Daybell were to take the stand, he would claim Fifth Amendment, his right to protect himself from self-incrimination. How would that affect the trial? Does that affect whether or not they're going to call him as a witness?
Absolutely. All of this is going to affect the outcome. Look, I think if they were to call him and he pled the Fifth, I'm not so sure that that necessarily helps him. You know, oftentimes the prosecutor's office will give a defendant who's charged in a conspiracy like this a plea deal or some form of benefit for testifying for the state. In this case, we don't see that because the evidence against both of these defendants is really overwhelming. So I would think the prosecutor's office would feel that they don't even need the benefit of one of them. I think that there are going to be more avenues for Lori's defense team to say to the jury at the end of this case that there are more questions than answers. And if Chad takes the stand, I think that could backfire against them.
Right. That's a really great point, and I'm glad you explained the nuances of the strategy, knowing that a criminal defendant facing trial might choose not to testify. All right, let me ask you this, Holly, about the ankle shackles on Lori Vallow Daybell, being there last week, not being there this week, things like having her hair done, wearing makeup. I mean, a lot of people, even though there's a presumption of innocence, a lot of viewers have expressed, how is this fair? How is this right? She's in jail. How is she able to access this and have a look? Tell us any insights you may have on any of those points, Holly.
Sure. Well, the timing of her no longer wearing shackles tells me that her defense team has requested the court, unshackle her based on the fact that there is a presumption of innocence and that we are here, the jury is here to determine whether or not she's innocent or guilty. And until that moment, we're not going to parade her around in her jailhouse gear. So I definitely think that I'm excited that our viewers are engaging in the trial process and asking these great questions. And the answer is because of the presumption. However, from my take on this, I think it's highly inappropriate seeing that Lori is behaving in such an animated, comfortable, casual, almost leadership way in the courtroom. If I were her defense team, I would say, this is a serious event. You are charged with the murder of your two children. And from your voice alone on these recordings that we've been listening to over the past few days, you indicate that you know exactly where these kids are and you know exactly what happened to them. And so I would advise her, if I were her defense attorney, to really tone down this animation and this excitement at being the center of attention. Because we are here because two children died, and the claim is that it is at her hands as a mother. And so the seriousness of this charge, in my mind, warrants a serious response. And we're not seeing that from Lori Daybell. And that, I think, is going to be something that the jurors notice, regardless of whether her hair is curly or wavy.
Yeah, I agree with you, absolutely. And, you know, I can only assume she's got good attorneys. I can only assume they have said, yes, stop with the antics. Here's how you need to hold yourself out. But we know that defendants as well as witnesses don't always listen to advice of counsel.